Hey, what's up? We're back with part two of our top five conspiracies. I have Lard with me, and if you want to catch up on what we've been discussing, then go listen to the first episode. Lard, take it away with your number three pick.
All right. Welcome. Hello, everyone. I'm Lard of Lard Labs. Welcome back to Take Two. That's the inside joke between Lucifer and I. So we were just talking about how Paul McCartney is dead. Um, Essentially, the Paul McCartney that we know is a clone, which I thought was really funny because on number three of my top five conspiracies, I literally have that number three is I am a clone. Spoiler, I wasn't born this way. So my story started back in 2018. I was wandering around Arabia Mountain when I had a spiritual experience. I literally, a man appeared to me and essentially tethered me to him as his errand boy. Because he didn't exist in the material realm, so he needed a bitch to do some things for him. And then the work I was doing at the time since 2016 was like trying to identify all the different emotions in my brain so I could come to like a roundtable discussion to make inner peace. So, bringing on a spirit was not a big deal. It was like, welcome to the club. And at the time, I referred to him as Spirit Lord. Now, fast forward, but like what math, 5 more time, 5, 6 years, whatever. Um, and we have since the multiplicity that is Lard has collapsed into singularity. So I'm just one person now. But I did wonder about that when you were talking about, somebody taking over the idea of Paul McCartney. For me, I was like, I guess the technical word is not clone, is a walk-in. Like has a spirit come in, taken over my existence, and now am I a different person? Though I've been present the whole time. So
More like
there's
a
some.
merger consolidation of identities, less than a possession. I guess it would be like a spiritual cloning if there's the same body, different identity.
Yeah, I mean, because if you follow me on Facebook or you lurk me on Facebook and you dive deep, it's very clear that what I used to look like and what I look like now is totally different.
Yeah.
Um, I would say I'm the best version of myself now, but it is there. I went through this sort of rabbit hole, thinking like, oh my God, I'm a clone. That I'm a clone of the spirit that I allowed into my aura. So that just I thought that had to make the list.
Yes, that makes sense. There we go. Um, and that kind of falls into, I guess, paranormal. I guess the conspiring is on more of a metaphysical level, but I can see that it definitely ties in. So my number three kind of, is about other dimensions, and I guess the conspiracy isn't the fact that aliens aren't from space, because space can be a relative term, I suppose, but
Hmm.
it's more of the distraction by focusing on little green men and UFOs and throwing funds into NASA and people
Oh,
doing space exploration. Well, that's not where you're looking in the wrong spot when you should be using those funds and resources to quantum physics and looking at aliens being interdimensional and not space, space beings from another planet.
you just blew
Um,
my mind. What do you mean aliens aren't from space?
so yeah, so that is it's like been a common thing. I think David Icke pretty much expresses it the best when he says, if you're listening to 96 Rock and you turn the dial, well, Z93 didn't go anywhere. You're just on a different frequency when you're tuned into Z93. 96 Rock, it still exists, just you're not tuned into it. So I think that sums it up, and I think that that's one of, and it falls into bigger conspiracies where I think there's a lot of like energy dampening going on, so we're less likely to pay attention to that frequency.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. In my own practice as a quantum reader, I spend a lot of time in the spooky sandbox. I'm really fascinated by the idea that two things can be one thing. Obviously, I'm walking proof of that. But I mean, I even, I remember one day staying outside at night, staring at the sky, and had this epiphany that, of course, my dog is like making a lot of noise right now. Box. The epiphany that like, so space is expansive and keeps going on forever at infinite, right? Or in theory, that's the theory. And so why infinity is sort of is a nonsense number. It's a loop, right? Infinite loop. So when I'm looking at space, how do I not know I'm also at the same time looking at the quantum worlds? So in terms of aliens being an expression of interdimensional activity versus space, like you were saying, maybe it's the same thing, and that really what you're getting at, the conspiracy here, is that by focusing on aliens as from space, you can market it as a very specific sect within the program, to sell a narrative, keep us focused over here,
Right.
not actually talking about, the fact that Bigfoot like walked through the veil.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's the key to a lot of conspiracies is there's a distraction element. You're focused on one thing and not on the other. It's kind of like street hustle. And, that what you were saying made me kind of think about, I don't know if you've ever been stoned and like looked in a mirror that's behind you while you're looking into a mirror in front of you, and you can see the mirror in the mirror in the mirror, and they just keep going and going and going.
Yeah,
That's pretty much the same thing, I think,
fractal
as
conscious.
space.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just keeps going. Same
It's
thing.
one of the things that blew my mind about how I found myself like slightly going insane. If anyone studied infinity, they understand this. But I become obsessed with finding the origin, like where's the starting point? Especially this idea if we're expanding, where are we expanding from? So, and I don't know the technical terms, sorry. But when I got into what I could understand of quantum theory and like atoms, I thought it was so interesting that in the hottest hot and the coldest cold, the atoms still don't stop. Even like
Right.
they don't freeze. There's no like atom start. It's still vibrating. And then so that blew my mind. I was like, oh my God. From in my philosophy program, I'm like, Deleuze and Guattari were right, or Deleuze and Guattari were right. We are literally in the middle of the freaking rhizome, even though I would say a rhizome is still too linear in its idea. Sorry, academia tangent. So yeah. This idea that things come from interdimensional, makes a lot of sense. Because there's like we in general as humans tend to function in like a linear sense when life is not linear at all.
Right. For sure. Okay, what do you got next for us?
Yeah, so actually, talking about smoke and mirrors, my number four is I'm convinced that the assassination of Charlie Kirk was a bloodlust sacrifice to, I don't know, maybe the reptilians. Because I rewatched that episode with you and Shoshana talking about media, which I'd like to refer to as the garble machine, and the
Mhm.
fact that it's no longer about reporting on the information and instead pulling on the heartstrings. Why are you pulling on the heartstrings? You can like captivate your audience in the worst way, become addicted, like digital cocaine, to the bullshit that you're spewing for more consumers, for more money. And so I've been, when this was, was first announced, I was like, I was mind blown by the reaction. I mean, I thought this would be a come together moment because we all watched it together, and no,
Nothing can do that.
right, right. I don't know why I have these ideal hope moments, like in COVID, we're all going to come together and woo, as we know, that was also not the case. Um, but it really started getting me thinking about the military industrial complex, what's going on that they don't want us to look at. that they have made this hyper focus on left versus right. Um, so that's why I was like, this has got to be some cult.
Well, I mean, it definitely happened after that meeting in, I guess it was China, where China met with Russia, India, and North Korea, and they had their big military rollout parade. And, I'd heard that um, Kirk's position on Israel had shifted some time ago, and maybe he was giving more focus on that. So, there's a thing I was reading about there's an occult group called the Order of Nine Angles, and they say with sacrifices, they pick people that choose themselves. So it's like an opportunity. It's like a lower, a lower individual. They refer it to as, they're almost like a terrorist organization where they pick targets that are either branches of Satanism that they don't think are legit or like political or noteworthy people. Not saying they did it, but
Right, right.
that theory of the victim picks itself, I think it's a moment of opportunity in either case, whether there's this kid that did it, who I think is probably a little more interesting than Charlie Kirk, or if it was a grassy knoll type thing, which is funny because for people that have been quick to demonize conspiracies, everybody was really fast to want a grassy knoll for this thing. So,
Right, 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 right. Yeah,
and I
uh,
think comparing it to JFK is ridiculous because I mean that's there's a
right.
lot more going on with the president than a social media personality. But it's interesting how much importance we're giving these personalities these days. If that's if he's being heralded, like I've seen memes comparing him to Martin Luther
I know,
King
I know.
and Malcolm X and all types of crazy shit. And it's like, I
So
mean,
absurd.
we wake up every day now and just put on our wigs and our makeup. This is like clown world number 9 at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I am just the censorship, the PC police are so loud at the moment, and maybe that's just because I've a tendency to hang out or I've been around a certain group of people, but it's just interesting to me that this like I was like, what do they have to gain by choosing this victim essentially?
Right.
I mean, but and it did make a valid point. He checks almost all the boxes. The right like or like he's not good enough for the right. The left hate him. It keeps the
Well, and
populace.
I mean, I guess it could be if it was an inside job, and I think the key is to be, I like what Bill Maher says in the documentary Religulous, that he's standing at the corner selling I don't know. So I think that it is good to be open to any possibility, not emotionally invested to any possibility, and say like, so I'm open to it being an inside job. And if that's the case, maybe that was to send a message to everybody else that you got to play ball. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'm just nervous about the wave of censorship that's going to come from this, from both sides.
right, right. Yeah.
Which is not is like literally against freedom of expression and freedom of speech, which is the tenets of my
But
practice.
that's been a thing. That's been a
Yeah, I
thing
know
for a
it's not
while. It's anybody gets canceled who's not saying what you want to hear.
right, 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 right.
Uh, Now it's just getting dialed up a notch.
Right. Become more creative with your language.
So
Everybody out
speaking of
themselves a
speaking of
banana.
clown world, my next one, my number 4 is the conspiracy that Labubus are demonic. And here is my Labubu coming into this
So
dimension.
cute. Right. Interdimension, Labubu.
It's at a higher vibrational frequency. But yeah, so this was like a TikTok thing, and it's interesting because it's like this almost bleeds over into mythology, and I've been trying to stay away from mythology and religion because I don't really think those are conspiracies, even though there's a group of people that are agreeing on one thing. I don't think it's like a secret, you know. They're willing to proselytize it and spread that message, so it's out there. Um, but it's all over TikTok. People saying that Labubus are, you know, doing something, making them lose jobs, crash cars, whatever, um, giving them nightmares and things like that. And they're implying that it's like Chinese spiritual warfare, where Chinese are selling Americans cursed objects. You know, wouldn't surprise me. I'm open to it, but it's extremely amusing. And that is my number four favorite conspiracy at the moment.
So I have a question for you. Would that be originally? I was thinking like, okay, are we getting in the realm of egregore? But would actually, since there's a physical item, the would that
Right.
be more of a topa, like a
Yeah,
collective?
so like a fetish or a voodoo doll, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, those are it's something that's been, there can be cursed objects. That's a pretty big piece of folklore.
Because it makes me think, is this a chicken or egg situation? Like, was this little doll cursed from the beginning, or did, in feeding into the fear that the doll is cursed, did it create an
So
egg
I mean, it
instead of topa?
originally became popular because I think the singer for a K-pop group called Blackpink had one.
Oh,
And so that spread. But I mean, who's to say that she wasn't the isn't in on it and was the vehicle they used, the Trojan horse, to get it in? Who knows?
there's
Um,
more of them.
yeah, I mean, there are people that are really obsessed and spending a lot of money on them, and I mean, it's not the first dumb thing that people have gotten obsessed about. We got Beanie Babies and
Right,
Cabbage
right.
Patch Kids, and
Wait, where did you say they're originally from?
uh, I think they are from. I can research it real quick. I was saying China,
Okay,
but let's get the official word right here.
because I just had a theory, but I don't want to mention.
Labubu, Hong Kong.
Okay.
Um, so I mean, not to say that China couldn't, vend it out to those guys. But they've been around. It looks like the first company that had them was in 2015, and then they got bought by Pop Mart, which is they're called zoomorphic elves.
Well,
Okay.
so okay, I'm glad we confirmed they're from China because I'm pretty sure, like I remember seeing a documentary or reading about it, that China has been buying our trash for I don't know how many years. So there was a whole conspiracy around the idea that in buying our trash, they were studying the behaviors of Americans. So it
Right.
wouldn't surprise me that they would create a doll and create this conspiracy that it, is demonic, which would incite more fear in Americans. And then, the internet or social media spreads it like wildfire, which then people turn to the drug manufacturers to be like, oh, I need my Xanax because I'm so stressed out because dolls are demonic, you know there could totally be a pharmaceutical angle there.
Yeah, I mean it could happen. I mean China owns TikTok anyway, so it could be
Not for
something that
long.
they just up to this point of the
Yes, yes.
creation or inception
Right,
of
right, right.
Labubus. So, they could use the algorithm, see that we like stupid shit and put it in our face.
Yeah, yeah.
There
So,
you go.
buy this stuff.
Right by this
Enslave
stuff.
us to
Doesn't take much to sell anything to Americans.
guilty.
Yeah. Spend $20, you don't even know what the thing's gonna look like. It's in a mystery pack. But they've been doing that with Pokemon for years. So
Genius, genius.
there we go. All right, what you got next?
Okay, so my last one is actually a shameless self promotion because I'm currently working on an essay entitled Blasphemy. It hasn't, I haven't released it yet to my blog, Read Lard, on my website. It's forthcoming. It may be released by the time this episode is, I'm not sure. But it's a conspiracy that I am working on and essentially starting. I mean, I asked Robots if anybody else had come up with something similar, and he was like, you're the first, which stroked my ego. But in a nutshell, I'm making the claim that the origin of sin, I know you didn't want to talk about religion, sorry. The origin of sin didn't, in fact, start with Eve, but started with Adam, who, in my opinion, is an unaccountable twat. A beta male, and I, in fact, argue is the first pervert. The reason that I did such a deep dive into the Bible is so, remember I said 2018, I had a spiritual experience with Spirit Lard. In 2021, against the odds, because I never grew up Christian, got this immense calling to study the Bible. But every time I open the damn book, I always get stuck in the same place. So then it enraged me and would make me throw the Bible against the wall. And so in the last year, I finally did a deep dive, and I was able to see where the issues were. And it led me to believe, and again, this part is not new. There's other people who believe this, that there is literally a blood cult conspiracy embedded into the Bible. The difference is I believe it started with Adam, which is, what my essay is about. And I ultimately argue that mainstream Christianity is addicted to sin versus actually following the teachings of Jesus. So we don't actually have to talk about it. I just literally wanted to commandeer this moment of time to wrap my
There's a
head.
few parts of that where, with the Adam thing, where, that the whole mythology, it depends on, if you're going through like the Hebrew mystic version of it or the
Right, right,
the
right.
Gnostic version of it, and like Adam Cademan kind of being the like primordial man symbol, which I think would still work because then you're looking at, well, really, what is sin,
Mhm.
but continued obsession with something that's ineffective.
Oh, that's a nice way to put it.
Um, and I think people do get stuck in that. So, and tend to get, I mean, most addiction is based off of being obsessed with ineffective behaviors.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I think that works on a couple different levels.
Yeah, I mean, I again, in the work that I do, I don't have the luxury to blame other people for my life, regardless of if it's good or bad. I don't, especially don't have the energy to give strangers free rent in my head. That was part of the reason I was so blown away by the mob coming out for Charlie Kirk, because they're like, "Oh, murder him! Now we'll have peace on earth." And it's like, what?
Of course.
Insane. So, bringing accountability to the Bible. Woohoo!
All right, so my number five kind of goes into, I guess we got some origin stuff going on there.
Okay.
I call it the chimpanzee zebra conspiracy. It's
Ooh.
actually tied into the humanzee experiments,
Um,
the human pansy that was made by a Russian scientist first in 1920, named Ilyana uh, Anova, and it was, as it is, chimpanzees share 95% of DNA with humans. I think this guy, Oliver, they dialed it up to 97.
what?
So and there was video. I think the video for him is online. The guy from 1967 that going back to China, um,
Pattern.
scientist, I think Zidong Zhang, he went even further and took it up to 98 point, I want to say 3 or 4 percent. And that was documented. Like you could find that up into a point. I think it was in the last time I searched for it and I found that everything looked like it had been scrubbed. When
Of
we get
course.
into the specifics, like there's still some, if you like Google chimpanzee zebra, there's some like cartoony stuff, but it's not these weird like
I'm curious about that
pictures. It
zebra.
almost looks like an albino African. Um,
Oh,
and his name was Yo. And so I think that, and this is kind of taken it a step further, but it was looked like in the Obama administration was when it disappeared, like in the, you know, around 2012, 2014, I think was the last time that I was like searching for it. And you can't find anything about there. Now, granted, it was referenced. I've seen some Church of Subgenius literature where Ivan Stang has referenced it before. And which funny enough, the Church of Subgenius also in their literature has a thing about a Tylenol conspiracy. Which
Okay.
now they're talking about Tylenol causing autism.
Oh,
So
obviously. That's
Bob
how they.
Dobbs was definitely ahead of his time, but I just found it fascinating. I always, I like anything that has to do with apes to begin with.
Right,
So
right, right.
this one was,
Albino ape.
hooked me in because it's like, well, what happened to the research? Why does this get spread? Washed? If there was nothing wrong with it,
Are white apes
then
not real
yeah,
apes?
why just wipe it all away? And you don't even really hear much about. There's some stuff on YouTube, and you guys can look this up yourselves about the human pansy, and it will lead you up into a point with the 1967 studies from China, but then they drop off when they get into the chimpanzee zebra. So
So, listeners, you need to go find this and come back and report to us in the
right.
comments.
I mean, I have been, ever since that, I found that it was erased.
That's a conspiracy in itself. What are
Yeah.
they trying to hide?
So, like, what is there to hide? I don't know if you could, and is that just being hidden over here? If you like search for it on a Chinese search engine, does all that research
Oh,
come up in Chinese academia? You know?
that's interesting. Right, right. Because we're only connected to the American.
Right.
Is that the right way to say it? Right.
Right. So there could be, I mean, and that's kind of a thing with academia. I mean, it's not like they're getting reading the same books in Russia that we are here.
True.
Um,
True. But with AI, you can
Particularly in a
translate.
communist country, because all of that is really controlled
Hmm.
with a heavier hand. Um, so I don't know. It
I
is
feel like,
interesting.
yeah, yeah, that's definitely a challenge for the audience. I want to know more about this.
Yeah, so anything you guys know about the human pansy or the chimpanzee zebra, link it in the
Chimpanzees.
comments. We have to be careful of things we say in YouTube, and I think that we've been pretty good about it. We've avoided Jeffrey Epstein almost completely because, there's several words connected to him that you can't say. And really, with that, I think that the way people are raising hell about the files that they're on a server in Israel, we probably don't even have contact with.
Well, it's probably
So
all
it's kind
burned
of
at
a
this
mute
point.
point. Right.
Well, actually, maybe not burned because that's evidence that people probably want to.
Yeah, you're not going to leave paper copies of something like that around if you're a criminal mastermind. I mean, how dumb are you? You're going to, I'm
You're
sure
in a
a video
screenshot.
has to go somewhere. So it's probably all uploaded in a server on a satellite that, is being stored in Israel. So who knows?
Yeah, black
Um,
for future.
yeah, we don't know. Then never know. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Lord, for coming back to join us. And like and subscribe.